Hello, good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands, Quindy and Justin, and sometimes even a Reaper John. How are you all today on this fantastic Wednesday? Sploosh, indeed. Let's see. There's much Quindy talk here. Second breakfast? Oh, man. I'm on my diet again. Don't mention second breakfast. It's just going to make me feel sad. I barely rate above, like, I maybe am an okay sub for Sea Otters. I saw that, Shadow Raven. I saw that. I'm making a note next to your name now. That kind of fan. Got it. Oh. Mandragar, yeah. I haven't lost weight like recently. Like I lost about 60 pounds on the ketosis diet, the keto diet, a few years back. But otherwise, I just like haven't gained it back. I am a little tanner thanks to Hawaii a while ago. But other than that, if you think I look like I've lost weight, awesome. I love that commentary. I'm all on with that. Sea otters improve everybody's morning, really. I mean, yeah, I know. I almost moved there. Like, but then I met this guy in California, so I moved here instead. And now I'm engaged. So, whatever. Life happens. You think maybe you'll move to Hawaii, and then you don't. Yeah, I know, Shadow Raven. I know. I saw it. I always see whatever we're hosting before I get on. It comes up when I go to our stream to activate mine. So yes, I am aware. Alrighty. And I'm not nearly as cute and fuzzy as an otter, so I don't blame y'all. Alrighty, cool. We're gonna fix our crap today, because our front is looking pretty good. But as far as our shadows and highlights go, like, it's looking pretty convincing. I think our shadows and highlights are kind of in the right places, though I could tackle that a little bit more. But the back is a complete mess. Oh, I'm such a mess, it says. Dear me, look at this mess. I really need to get out my tiny light and remind myself where my light source is coming from, and then we need to fix it. Thanks for the congrats. Yes, we don't have a date set. It'll be sometime next year. Spring, summer, autumn, somewhere in there. Whenever we have time and feel like it. Like, I think both of us just kind of want it to, like, be done. So the only reason that we don't just go to a Justice of the Peace is that his parents are probably, wanting something a little more than that. So, but I'm going to have a talk with him about it, just to make sure I've got his emotional state down before I, like, start to kind of put the energy into planning it, because I suspect David would rather I just take care of it. Alrighty, we're gonna get a light, an evil little Reaper light that they gave out, and we're gonna shine it pretty harshly on here, and kind of look at where our shadows and highlights are. And if we do this, we can really get a sense of where we've screwed up. There we go. So depending, and I've got to kind of be consistent with it. So I really need a lot of light over here, and I need to take those shadows away. I'm okay there, but I don't need that shadow down the middle of that muscle, and down here should be mostly shadow. So, okay. These little lights are very cute, and they're really, really bright, but that actually works for you when you're trying to force kind of a dramatic lighting onto a model that you're trying to paint correctly that way. So this is very useful little tool. Oh, no way, PM. Yeah. I want tops. I want 10 people there. And if I had my way, I'd do it all by myself, because I just want it done. And I don't really care about a wedding. And I really, with my schedule, I do not need to have another time sink, like, sucking up my time. So I never bought into the wedding thing as a girl. I was never that girl. I never really bought into it. So awesome that you did that, because that's impressive. Like, that takes energy and a ton of time to organize that big of a wedding. I'm in awe of you. I do not want to be you, though. Yeah, 300 people. Ugh, no thanks. No thanks, man. It would be like a convention, only worse because I would always be the center of attention. Like for me, for introvert Anne, that's just like no way. Like it's such a big no. I can't even paint a no big enough. Yes, I want a miniature wedding. Almost so miniature it's almost non-existent. Oh yeah. Right, right. Both families wanted big weddings, right? Yeah. See, my family's pretty small, and the only people I really care about are my parents and my brother. And I didn't even care about them the first time I got married. Like, they couldn't make it because we scheduled it kind of last minute. Um, so my parents actually didn't get to attend my first wedding, so I kind of like them to attend my second wedding if they feel like it. But, you know, my parents are used to me, my family is used to me doing what I want. And, like, you know, it's nice if they give me an opinion, but they can expect me to totally ignore it if I, like, don't feel it. So, yeah, but I get it. When you're in your 20s, there's a lot more pressure. And especially when both families are putting pressure on you, it's really hard. I was always terrible at setting boundaries in my 20s. So if that had happened to me then, I probably would have caved and done it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Huge. Huge, huge families. All right. I totally got distracted. And that's squirrel. It's a squirrel day. Squirrel day. But I have much better energy today than I had yesterday. So that's good. Yesterday was just tired day. I don't know if I interrupted my sleep cycle or something weird, but man, it was not a great day. All right, so our skin tone, remember, is a mix of ogre skin and a more natural human type skin tone, just to take that yellow down a little bit. Now, how we're going to fix this, guys, the thing is, and I've talked to you about this before, remember that when you have a darker base coat, layering lighter colors over it changes them. It makes them darker, right? And this ogre skin doesn't have like super awesome coverage. So if we try to build up our ogre skin to this lighter yellow over the top of this brown, it's going to be hard. The easy way to do this, if with yellows especially, because yellows are like this, yellows over white are nice and cheerful and bright, and the minute you try to put them over a darker or mid-tone color, they go dim. So the only way to really fix this is to put down white first, and then go over it with the yellow again, to essentially restore our primer, and then go over it with a new base coat. So that is how you fix yellow if you screw up your yellow and you've lost your bright tone. So this stream is about fixing our screw-ups and correcting our lighting. Right, exactly. There are so many things. Wherever you see the light is where I'm going to restore yellow. So like here, I'm looking at this and I see that if I could, let me see if I can kind of make this stay, ogre. I mean, wherever you can see the bright light move, and I've got to get it at the right angle. There we go. So anywhere that you see the light really washing out, see how it washes out this whole area. See where I put a little shadow there? Those shadows should not be there because look at how strong the light is on them. Whereas the shadow here underneath this muscle is perfectly in place because it's not being washed out by the light. Here, I need to accentuate the shadows here, and I need to knock out these highlights down here because they're all in shadow. You can see that they're all in shadow. You can see this muscle's picking up a little bit of light. This muscle picks up a nice bit of light right here, and this. But wherever I see a shadow that's being kind of washed out because light is shining on it, that means there should not be a shadow there because light is shining on that area. Does that make sense to you? But now I need to mix up my midtone. And essentially, PM, the reason I'm using this tiny light instead of my phone light is that this allows me to set up the ogre, shine the light on it, and take a picture with my cell phone so that I can refer to it and correct my lighting. So tiny lights, little pen lights, or whatever you've got are very useful in this circumstance. So this is a 2, yeah. People have a lot of trouble with lighting, and most of the time I can honestly just imagine the lighting and get there, just with little nudges here and there, PM. But because this stream is teaching and a lot of people have trouble with this subject, I'm breaking it down using the little pen light. It also is a nice double check. It's a really nice double check on bigger models, I find, because it tends to, with a little model, you have to be really good about your angle. Like if you're trying to do this on this guy, you can still do it. You can see where the highlights should be, and you could take a picture. It sometimes won't be as realistic as far as the light and shadow play, because it's like a big broad light and it's a little tiny details. Miniatures at 28 mil really don't shade and highlight themselves like very naturally. And like there's nothing down here and there's a lantern under there, so that's not very realistic. You know, there are things that this technique doesn't do for you. And 28 mil, I find you do have to, you can use that as a starting point, but you do have to use a little bit of your own imagination. All right, I'm going to put a couple, this is going to be a 3-to-1 mixture. I'm going to use 2 drops of tan skin, 4 drops of ogre skin. I actually dropped an extra drop of tan skin in there because my tan skin drops were really tiny for some reason. Sometimes the aperture gets a little clogged and you can tell that your drops are smaller than the drops coming out of the other bottle, and in that case you should adjust. Everybody steals ideas from everybody else in mini painting. It's the natural iteration of art. Like it happens in all like everything you do that requires any ounce of creative thinking or problem solving, right? It's humans. Humans iterate. Humans like learn from each other and then they iterate it out into their own thing. That's the natural form of like how we deal with stuff. All right. Now we need, I am going to mix up my shadow. My shadow is like 1 brush full of the yellow mix that I just made. Notice how it's gone more toward an ochre, a little less yellow as I added the skin tone. But now I'm going to take a big brush of this, put it over here, another big brush of this, put it over here. Make sure I've got a nice puddle of it, and then I'm going to drop 2 drops of Oxide Brown, which is the new Kickstarter color, into it. If you have not gotten, oh, that one had too much stuff in it. Okay, so that had a lot of binder in it, even though I shook it up a lot. And sometimes with these clear brights, you're going to see that you have to shake it just a little bit more because it's packed with so much pigment. There, we'll put a nice big blob in, and then I'll mix it up. Usually I was doing a 2-to-1, but since my proportion was thrown off there because of the that first drop having so much clear binder in it. So now I'll just kind of have to eyeball it and adjust it. So I'm going to actually put just a tiny bit more. Yeah, exactly. And everybody's got their own shtick. So I always encourage my students to like find their own road. I'll show them what I've, done. And I share stories about what other people who I know have done. That's actually, somebody asked about the old Jennifer Haley and me video from Dark Sword the other day. And that's actually, I think, the main value of that video. Like some of the stuff that I do is definitely out of, like it's kind of like I paint so differently now than I did then. A lot of it's still applicable though, because it's how I did it back then. I mean, I wasn't a suck painter back then, so I definitely still say some useful stuff. I just haven't watched that video in like, honestly, 10 years. So I've forgotten all of the things in it. But you also get the benefit of Jennifer. And so when I'm doing something, I often will turn to her since we're shooting this all at the same table, and I'll ask her, hey, Jen, what do you think about this? And then you get 2 different like mindsets on the same topic. So still a valuable video, I feel. All right, so if I'm going to kind of demonstrate this, if I try to paint this yellow over that shadow in the shoulder, see how it's still there? It's still kind of, it would take me so long, guys, to cover up all of this. Like, probably the thing to do right now before I start going at it with the white would be to kind of like take some of these rough areas where I've just got a sharp demarcation and kind of maybe layer them a little bit. just to make things blend a little better. But, you know, honestly, that's for later. So I'm going to mix up some white and show you, and just show you how I can knock that shoulder out just fast. So we're going to be working with a kind of a triad of a trio of colors today to correct this stuff. Pure white, my favorite color, my favorite pigment, my favorite paint. Yeah, how about that? My favorite paint. My favorite MSP. I have a favorite Scale 75 tube paint too. 3 guesses what that is. Clue, it's not white. So I'm going to do a 2-to-1 with white because I want this to be a little thin. Actually, if you haven't watched my streams that I do on my own Twitch channel, you probably wouldn't know what my favorite Scale 75 tube paint is. It is not purple. It is not purple. It's a color I wanted to make for MSP for ages and ages, and I could not find anybody to sell me the pigment. And then I realized that, you know, most companies were using, you know, a mixture of other pigments to make that color anyway. So then I made it, and it's russet brown. But there is an original artist tube color that russet brown resembles. See, I've given you lots of hints now. And that color is my favorite Scale 75. Because we never, they managed to like hit like a certain quality in it in their version. So I'm gonna just take a thinned white and I'm gonna block that out. I'm gonna let it dry. I kind of used a little scratchy texture. We'll see how that translates. Once it's dry, which is going to be dry pretty much right away because I'm using thinned paint and I'm applying it very thinly on the model, I can take my Ogre base skin tone and I can put it over the top. And pretty much it's going to cover that up. Now I do notice that my white is a little bit visible. Like I've kept some of the texture. So what I want to do then is I want to thin my white just a little bit more. But I've got back to that light color and I've wiped out the shadow. Russet brown is another name for, you guys should know this, I say this all the time, burnt umber. And this is my favorite Scale 75 because it's a different type of burnt umber. Like russet brown resembles the burnt umber from Winsor Newton. This is a very dark, you can see how dark it is, burnt umber. And I love that, but it still has the richness when you thin it out. And I just never had the right pigment mix to do that. Like there are just some pigments that we could never get at Reaper, and I could never get something that would do that for me. I'm going to do one more drop of water in here. So now it's it's a 3 to 4. It's almost a 1 to 1. But burnt umber is hands down my favorite Scale 75 tube paint. Hands down. I kind of want to like squeeze a bunch of it into a dropper bottle and thin it down with mediums and water until I can make it into an MSP paint and additives, and then just use it in the bottle because I love it so much. It's such a good shader. Oh my gosh. Well, I used it for Noli. You guys remember Noli? Noli is a lot of burnt umber. A lot. Raw sienna and burnt umber is Noli's fur color. Also, somebody asked on my Patreon, but I didn't actually save the my Twitch video where I did the spots on Knoll. I don't know what I was thinking. I probably got distracted because I wasn't as organized as back then as I am now. So yeah, sadly, the way I did the spots on the Knoll got deleted by Twitch because I'm not a Twitch partner, so it doesn't hold on to it as long. But I think I've actually done that technique on my Patreon in 28 mil. I'll have to look back and see. If not, I certainly can do a video on it. But I think I did leopard spots. I suspect I did it on the Spirit Beast because I needed to do the other side of her. There we go. So a little bit more solid there. Now, we also need to block out this. Another thing I could do is just to take a little bit of my starting yellow, mix it with a little bit of this white, and just use that straight to block over that. Putting a little bit of the yellow in to start is going to make it blend in just a little bit better. You can see that it's less stark. Yeah, I mean, it could be. It's hard to, it can be hard to like get that at this scale. Mostly you're just using mottled kind of reddish browns and golden browns for the surface. Like, it's too small to do like a real leather texture. Like, you can suggest it. Didn't they paint those though? Like, usually colored shields actually are like either meant to represent painted wood or painted leather, I thought, but maybe I'm wrong. This guy has fur, a fur loincloth. It's very evidently fur. He's got leather or cloth down on his bracelets and on his arm bracers. This is definitely like a burlap, I think, up here. Because it's really textured like it is. Like it's sackcloth. All right, so let's keep correcting. Hello, come to me, little light. Let's take a look. All right. I need to get this in the right position. All right, all right, all right. And that needs to come into shadow. Yeah. Sometimes I have to block off my other light just to make sure I'm getting it right. Okay. Got it. I think. We'll see. So what I've got is I have more of a shadow up here over this whole shoulder. And it helps if you just take this mass by mass. So you've got all these muscles, and I mean, you can just take them lump by lump, really. When you light up your light, just look at a collection of lumps and just do those, and then move on to the next collection of lumps. There. A lot of shadow. There'll be some darker shadows too, but mostly I'm setting up, I want the light to translate, so. Now remember, this muscle actually did have a lighter, it did have a lighter edge on it, so that's good. This definitely needs to be darker, darker. And notice that I'm still leaving a little bit, there's a difference here. Like, I can still see these muscles. I'm not making them solidly dark like some of these other darker brown areas. I'm just working with... I'm leaving a little bit of highlight on them. It's just not going to be as bright as the areas that are actually in the light. Let's see here. So there are definitely still degrees of highlight and shadow here. Yeah, I mean, it's all in your goals, Mandrakar, right? It's, I mean, it's, if you want it to be done, then by all means, do it with faster techniques like dry brushing. I want this to look good because I want this to go, maybe to go in Reaper's gallery. So most likely this model will go to Ron when it's done, because he likes his yellow ogres and he's going to like it. So given that, I'm not going to dry brush it. Also, he's not fur, right? Yeah, I don't know. It's if you do that, Pendrake, just keep in mind, like, at that point, it comes down to planning your color composition. Like, it's a cool period piece, but ask yourself, am I just putting too much brown on the model? Or is that what I want? Because shields like this, shields and leather bits and cloth bits, are really good areas to introduce a spot of color onto these big humanoids that otherwise tend to be pretty bland, let's face it. It's kind of hard. Like a lot of ogres just look kind of like the skin color and then brown, right? And that's all. Maybe some gray or bone. And so it tends to be actually pretty visually boring. So just keep that in mind. If we did a polished, like just a polished leather, a lacquered leather, we'd be essentially turning our back on making this a color. And so we'd be losing the opportunity there to add some color to the back of the model. So remember to always think about that when you're planning out like what your materials are going to be. Because if you're okay with that, then cool. But if you want to do something neat on this like freehand, then you don't want to necessarily go that direction. So, hey, Miniatures Den, it's good to see you. How's it going, Luca? We are ogring. We are setting up shadows to get our lighting right on an ogre. And he's yellow because the old first edition ogres, first edition D&D ogres were supposed to be yellowish skinned, and brownish yellow, I believe. So I'm totally pandering to Ron, the art director at Reaper, with doing this color of skin on my ogre. That's why the Reaper Master Series ogre skin is so darn yellow. But I've mixed it with normal, quote-unquote, normal human skin tone to make it play a little bit nicer and not be quite so yellow. Yeah, we could absolutely, if we did that, you've got it, we could absolutely add tattoos, Vimanakwa. That's actually the next thing I was about to bring up. You are presentient. That word. Not presentient. You are not before sentience. You are prescient. So, yeah, we could totally do tattoos instead, choose to make this like a polished lacquered leather, and add some color and interest with tattoos instead. And there's nothing wrong with making a bland ogre if we decided that this guy needs to be all earth tones and we're going to go browns, reddish browns, and the brownish yellow. That would make a perfectly harmonious model. We don't have to put in a bright color. It's just that a lot of people, when they sit down to paint one of these, they're like, well, he really needs a color somewhere, you know? So... Are you an orange goblin, Bug Lips? Your name is green today. Maybe you need to change it. Yeah, it's rare that we see the Bug Lips. I mean, we always have the Quindy. So, you know, well, wait, does that mean chat's going to explode? Like, I don't know. I don't know if those two can be on at the same time on anywhere other than Reaper Live without chat exploding. I'm not certain on that. So yeah, so what we're doing today is we are, when I originally blocked in the shading here, because I'm using an oblique shade, an oblique highlight where I'm coming slightly slanted from the front, when you go to the back, sometimes you'll just autopilot and you'll just paint it from the same direction until you remember, oh no, it's reversed on the back. So I kind of like just splarged in a bunch of shadow and now I'm having to go back and correct it. Yeah, the drum is also a good opportunity for color, but that you don't want that to be the only place that you have color though, because I mean, it's a cool detail, but it's also not like the only thing. Now we do have a nice opportunity for color up here on the wraps that are around his big club. So we could definitely choose a color to go up there and echo it there and put it over here and maybe put it down here. And then you've got a nice leading the eye around the piece. You could also do just like alternating different colors. You could do a red and a blue and a red and a blue and do it that way. And because those are brighter splashes of color, you'd still be perfectly fine and it would still draw the eye really well. But you can also just say, hey, I don't want any bright colors. Instead, I'm going to do contrast here with lights and darks. So I'm going to go and contrast very light with very dark, and we're going to do all earth colors. And if you do enough contrast, you do enough light versus dark, then you're going to be okay. Your model will still look exciting even if the color scheme isn't visually exciting. I mean, look at some of Frank Frazetta's stuff. Look at his famous Conan piece, right? It's all yellows. Like it's yellow and ochre and black and white, with very little else in it. And it's still an exciting piece because there's so much contrast because Frazetta was a master of that. So I wouldn't make these wraps tartan for the reason that we don't have enough room. To get a pattern, when you're doing freehand pattern, to get it to correctly read, you really want to have enough room to clearly show the pattern. I might be able to do it on this one because I have enough room down here at the ankle that I could probably show that it's a tartan. Over here, there's so many strings interrupting the pattern, it wouldn't be very clear. So you always want to kind of consider that with freehand. You need enough space so that the pattern, the main pattern, will be clearly visible on one area. And if you do that, then even if you just kind of, I hate to say half-ass, but yeah, even if you just kind of like blorf in the rest of it, the human eye will catch that part and extrapolate it to the rest, as long as you're more or less on target. You don't even have to be precise with it at that point. So yeah, we could do it. But then remember, freehand also draws the eye. So I want the attention up here because I really like his face. I love the muscles here, the tendons on the neck, and all of this. I really like this. If I put tartan or freehand down here and I don't find a place to do something distracting, equally distracting up here, then everybody's going to stare at his anklet. Like, I have seen that model where the person did a mosaic floor and the model was really well painted, but the only thing people looked at was the floor. So that's you don't want to make that mistake. If you're going to put intricate freehand up somewhere, think about doing it higher up on the model. Or if you're going to do it down there, do something else up here to draw the eye. You're a goblin, not a filthy wizard. All right. Well, Games Workshop goblins explode regularly, but they're also green. So if you are an orange goblin, we'll give you that buy. Alrighty. And I'm starting to get to the point where I really want a line also. And I think I may have buried my brown liner in the other room. No. Oh, no, I'm wrong. I have my brown liner. When I start getting to the point where the skin's coming together, I almost always do my lining then. Like, usually after base coat and shading, usually before I start to do highlighting. And the reason that I do it then is because adding that really dark shadow of the lining means that I kind of better feel like I can judge better the amount of highlighting I'm putting onto the model then. It also kind of tells me how dark my shadows really are. Once I put that really dark line in, these shadows may not seem dark at all anymore. Yeah, like both, you got it. Like we'd do a tattoo across the chest and shoulder maybe to bring in some freehand that's really bold to distract from doing a tartan down here. I'm not sold on the tartan idea. So we'll have to see. Let's see here. Because sometimes I feel like those are cool details. I think it'd be cooler on a giant maybe. Because giants, like, they're just so much bigger, you can do a lot of other stuff. But maybe he would have a tartan anklet. I'll have to think about it. I'll think about it, and I'll give it a due consideration. But for now, I'm just trying to nail these skin tones. Then again, you're focusing here instead of here. If I do a tattoo to Pendrake, I really want to do it up here. Unless you've got enough detail and cool stuff to draw the eye to here. Like, you almost want to wait until you've got the skin kind of highlighted in to see if the face stands out enough. But because the head is very small, you're going to run into maybe it getting overwhelmed if you did a big tattoo down here, especially because any highlight you put up here, there's going to be big, broad highlights down here on the stomach because it's a big, light space. You can see how light it's going to be. So that's right away is going to make it big, light, and warm, and that means it's going to draw the eye. So we're going to have to fight to keep the focus up here. So rather than give more points to this area and make sure that people look here, I'm more interested in doing a tattoo up here, maybe across the chest and part of the shoulder, and then using that to like draw attention here. Because I want to keep attention. Sadly, yeah, you could do a tiny forehead tattoo to go with it. Actually, Sean, that's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. Because or top of the head tattoo, more like it. Yeah, maybe not Maori, but, you know, some primitive ogre kind of thing, right? But yeah, something cool. Yeah, I think the top of the head tattoo plus a shoulder tattoo. Because you don't want to do just up here, doing it here too, like putting a couple, and maybe even at that point, you really want to do a cool one on the back, maybe, to kind of just give him a overall like cool tattoos. That would be really awesome, and it would really raise the level of this model as far as, you know, what you're showing off. So when you're looking at a model and you're trying to learn something, ask yourself, where do these things fit in, right? And maybe you can work on some of these techniques that can really elevate your painting to the next level. Just going to block in the kneecap a little bit. It does not need to be as light as it is. There it is. A little bit better. Yeah, not taking suggestions for tattoo right now. I don't want to get distracted. I really want to do the get my shading in. It is very difficult when you paint to not get distracted by your shiny ideas and to finish out the what you might consider the boring parts of the model, quote unquote boring. I personally love doing skin tones. Like, they're probably one of my favorite parts of a model at this point. So for me, I really want to enjoy this process. Especially because this is not your usual skin tone. So we're going to talk about, I need a shadow behind the head here too. We're going to talk about kind of how I'm going to bring some reds in to make this a little bit more human. See, I'm shading a little bit here because I need this shadow behind the head. And this pec's going to get, this is going to get a lot of shadow. And again, it's not going to be the darkest shadow. I just want it to be darker than this. So you can still see that there's a darker shadow and a lighter area, but now we're really getting into bringing the shadows into this area. And really defining kind of the volume here. Shadows define volume. They give things weight. They imply a solid barrier. I'm really liking this now. This is starting to look really good now. See, David, my fiance, he would have sat down and he would have spun off a beautiful lighting effect in like half an hour, maybe even less. Me, I have to work at it. I have to stop, I have to think, I have to fix. Eventually, though, if you stop and think and fix, you will internalize what you're doing, and it will get easier for you. Yeah, the key, Grey Wolf, is to focus on one thing at a time. I think a lot of painters, at least at Paint Club, this was the case. A lot of people try to work on too many things at once, trying to get better at too many things at once. But the people who sit down and say, okay, I'm just going to work on my layering, and I'm going to work on it and see, you know, where it goes from textures to smooth, and I'm going to try to like get and understand that paint consistency. People who do that sort of thing and work on just that until they kind of have a better understanding, and then they move on to the next thing. Those people are the people I see go from like bronze level to high silver in a year. And gold the next year. It's focused learning. It's tactical learning. Where you just set your target and you go after it. And usually, if you notice that everything is a challenge for you, that means you need to work on your fundamentals more. Because learning paint consistency and paint application and brush loading and unloading is the name of the game. Everything else is just taking those things and doing different little bits with them. Just changing them up a little bit. And so if everything is a challenge, work on your fundamentals. All right, I'm really liking that now. That's really coming along. I think I want to shade the outside edge of that foot too. Just a little. There. And a little bit more here. There. Yeah, it was bothering me how out in the open that foot was. There. That's nice. I like that. Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah. And this foot being darker definitely at the inner edge definitely gives you that idea. That's looking good. All right, I'm really happy with this so far. And we'll continue to fix the back. Every once in a while I need to go up to the front because I really like how the front's turning out and fix that a little bit to give myself a happy moment before I dive back into the back of the model, which I still feel needs a lot of work. And do that to yourself. Like, if you're working on a part of the model where you're really just kind of getting frustrated and you're not enjoying it and you know that there's more work, let yourself go and work on a different part of the model that you're really liking. Just for a little while. Just so you can get like yeah, I'm a good painter. Yeah, I love this. This is turning out so well. Okay, time to go back to make the donuts or whatever you're going to do. I used the time to make the donuts thing, which is totally from my childhood, and David totally did not get it because he never watched the Dunkin' Donuts commercials. Or maybe they just didn't have Dunkin' Donuts where he was growing up. Because, you know, they kind of are like here and there, and there are areas of the U.S. where there is not Dunkin' Donuts. Sad areas that never had like a Boston cream donut when they were growing up. Well, I guess Krispy Kreme does Boston cream, so you're not totally deprived. There we are. Good. Time to make the donuts. Yep. Yes, David did not get that reference. They did not have the donut guy in his area, apparently. Or when he was growing up. Ah, dang. I am just throwing the brush around today. Yeah, most places do Boston creams now. They're a standard. But like some things, like they used to have the lemon filled, like of the jelly donuts, they had not just raspberry, but they had lemon, and I love the lemon powdered sugar filled ones. And then they had a chocolate cream filled one. So yeah, my favorite ones when I was a little kid. There were some weird flavors that Dunkin' Donuts had that I never saw anywhere else at that time. And I loved them. All right, so this is getting a little bit better. I still need to check this muscle. I feel like this muscle and that muscle I'm just not nailing right now. So let me see. Okay, so that muscle is a little bit more in shadow. And I need to hide this. I need a barricade. Let's see. I think this paint box will be my barricade. Need to block off the light from my big ring light and just use this. Be aware of that when you're doing this sort of thing in the environment. All right, so I really need to probably shade more there and highlight that up and get those guys. All right, I think I've got it. So there's like a shadow that goes slantwise over this whole shoulder. I think that's true of almost everything, Pendrake. I was just like looking at the Halloween candy this year, and Reese's peanut butter cups are still good, but like, I don't know, like the Snickers bars, just not as good. I used to really love Snickers. And I hate to say that, but actually I'm somewhat vindicated because I sound like an old P, right? I sound like an old person when I say that. Like every old person I ever heard talk when I was a kid. But they did actually change like the formulations on some candies. Like the candy corn, Brock's. They used to be made with honey, and they're not anymore. It's all freaking corn syrup now. Like Brock's just decided to double down on unhealthy. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, at least before, if it had sugar in it, at least it was natural. But I suspect honey got so expensive that they decided that people just wouldn't notice if they changed it, but it totally changes the flavor. So now Sprouts did a version of candy corn that still has honey in it, and it tastes like the old Brock's candy corn. So some stuff, when we say, oh, it's just not as good as it used to be, it's honestly not as good as it used to be, if you really look at the ingredient list. Yeah, that's why they don't taste the same, Crowley. You've noticed it, haven't you? You've noticed the candy corn has changed in flavor. It is because they used to be made with honey, and now they're just all corn syrup. So go to Sprouts and see if you can find a Sprouts candy corn that is made with honey in the ingredients, or just any grocery, you know, that has its own brands of candy. If you can find one that's made with honey, it'll be the candy corn you remember. It'll taste like it. And pretty much it meant that I stopped buying like tons of candy corn, which is good because I really always liked the mellow creams, the different flavored mellow creams. But now that's no longer a holiday temptation for me. See, I lost too much of this, guys. I had to bring that back up. I'll talk about that. But yeah, all of the little, like the chocolate cats and the orange pumpkins and the banana moons. I used to love those suckers. Oh yeah, that explains why you Butternut Crunch. Yeah. Yeah, don't you hate it when they cancel? It's like you were the only person that liked it. It's like I always did that with TV shows when I was in college. It's like the TV show that I liked would be the one that got canceled. All right, I need a little bit more highlight back here. It's just kind of a bummer. Maybe that's why I gave up watching TV. Mostly. All right, so I'm going to bring that highlight in there. I'm going to bring this highlight in here. I'm going to keep this highlight here. Keep that highlight there. I'm going to look more at this muscle. I need my box. Yeah, if you've got lights on both sides like I do, I actually believe that painting with a light on each side of me is much better. Like, it's much better for my eyes, at least. All right. Yeah, I think I actually... Looking at this... Yeah, I've got my highlight the wrong shape there. Got everything good there. And I just need, everything is good there. Yeah, I need more on this arm because it actually sticks out enough that it should be getting more light. Hey, Robin, 23 months. Yeah, you get the song next month. Oh, caramel molasses Halloween candy. Interesting. Yeah, I've never had that. Well, that's why you just buy all the stuff up, Dabber. I mean, to be fair, these days with Drive-Thru RPG, a lot of the stuff that I liked from the old days is still available. Like, there's no reason to take it out of print anymore because you can just keep the PDF up indefinitely and still make a few bucks off of it. So I'm mixing my skin tone with a bit of my pure white to give it higher coverage so that I can block in this shoulder, which I accidentally decided was in shadow, but it's really not because it's actually behind the club. See it? So we actually do get some light right here. So I'm bringing that in so I can bring my yellow over the top there. I was like, something is not working here, and I had to stop and stare with my light to get it. David would have had it right away. But this is my like not superpower. This is a superpower that I'm slowly teaching myself, is lighting. And it takes time. And don't think that you're failing if it takes you time. This is valuable. This struggling with this is what teaches you how to do it effortlessly. If you never struggle with this, if you never struggle with a piece of painting that is like really hard for you, if you never do that work, you aren't going to ever get to the point where it's just natural to you. Like, this is what teaches you. The struggle is what teaches you how to correct your work. It's so valuable part of learning, and nobody talks about it. But it's in doing this and in correcting yourself that you learn how to look at things to do it right the first time. And you might have to struggle on several miniatures, but with each one, you will get a little better at it. That's looking better. Yeah, focus beam, yep. Yeah, iced fishing, totally. I mean, I don't often have to do this, but I really want a dramatic, very much more kind of a dramatic light source for this guy. Like, you can see how dark the shadows are and stuff. So I'm trying to do that. And when I'm trying to do that, sometimes, because my natural inclination is I tend to be timid with shadows. I tend not to go dramatic. And I tend to be more of a diffused lighting kind of girl. But I'm trying to like make myself get better on that. So that's why I'm trying to forcing. I like to use the pen light, the little tiny flashlight to force the shadows so that I make myself get darker with them. Now, the fact that our yellow is a little bit translucent actually works for us when we want to start blending in some of these really rough brush strokes that I've got. Because then it's actually, if you layer it over the brown, you can blend it into your brighter yellow places pretty easily. That's better. We're getting there. We're getting there. We've almost got this corrected. Yeah, it's looking better. Now I do need to drop it off a little bit on this edge. Now I need to pay attention to like where the area kind of goes on the other side of the model. There we go. It's better. Thanks, Ice Vision. Alrighty. So again, kind of want to get on the other side of these, make sure that I don't totally lose my shadows, but bring my highlights back in. There we go. So now I feel like this, now the back is starting to look more like it actually is lit. I can see my light falling. I feel like this area is still really muddy, and so I'm going to go in and tackle that next. There we go. Excellent. All right. Yeah, but this is starting to read a lot better now. So I really need to figure out this area, these little muscles, these little bunchy muscles. So where's my box? Box. I keep taking my box away when I really just need to leave it set up here, except I don't want this shadow that it's casting when I'm just painting. So how do you guys want me to bring his skin tones up? We're about to hit highlighting. I could go up with a paler yellow, or I could try to shift it more toward a skin tone. Do you guys have an opinion? How you'd like to see me do it? Let's see here. All right, so there. Definitely. So shade, highlight. Got it. Shade. So I need to highlight that little bit. And I need to darkly highlight this little bit. Or darkly shade, rather. Not darkly highlight. Silly Anne. Skin tone, please. One person says stay with the yellow-brown. Everybody, no, two people do. Pale yellow. Everybody else says skin tone. All right, we're going to go toward a skin tone then. We'll probably continue with a bit of the... since we already mixed tan skin in, the easy answer is to go to double down on the tan skin. And tan skin is probably the most versatile skin color we have in Master Series. There we go. Now we're starting to get it. See, you just have to correct a little bit here and there, and you're just like, all right, now we're starting to get it. And this muscle actually needs to be lighter as well. But now I'm starting to see the light back here. Ha, I see the light. But literally, I do. I can see the interplay of light and shadow much better on this model now. Yeah, that's looking much better. All right, I'm going to hit that highlight. Think I can do the rest of this with just my brain. I'm hoping. Those old politically incorrect commercials. Yeah, the legs down here are still kind of a hot mess, but I'm going to just ignore that for now. There comes a time where you're like, all right, I have evolved enough for the day. I am going to relax and do stuff I want to do. Which brings up an excellent thing. Even though you should always, like, you know, try to improve your fundamentals and try to pick, like, focus on one thing to improve. Try not to dance all over the place. Try not to improve your layering at the same time as you're improving your NMM, as you're improving your skin tones, as you're improving it. If you do more of a broad focus, you know, and decide just to work on your layering, it's going to help everything else. But when you do that, don't think you have to spend any more than like half an hour kind of just striving, right? We all get tired. We all get fatigued when we're trying to learn a new thing. And the key is to end on a good note, to end on a positive, upbeat, oh yeah, that looks better. All right, I'm getting tired, so I'm going to take a break, you know, and then go and just paint something else or another item on the same model just to let yourself have that break. It's important. It's important to give yourself a break. Like, you're working hard, you're like making progress, it's really exciting, and you should celebrate it by just, you know, painting whatever, however you want. It's okay. There we go. Now here between the shoulder blades, we're going to run into a problem because technically there would be some light on this area here, but it's way recessed, so we're not ever, even if we painted that pure white, we wouldn't be able to get it to really stand out because of the deep shadow. So the best we can do is kind of get this area right here that is in the light still and bring that up to try to sell the illusion that we've got light on that side of that muscle. There. That's really improved now. I'm feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good about that. Awesome. And then this little muscle actually needed a little bit of a highlight. Then we'll start doing we'll do a highlight on the skin maybe. Often they lack it because it's not in scale. Ice Fisher. But on a guy like this, you absolutely could see more veins sculpted, and it would be in scale. Just be careful where you put them. Make sure you put them anatomically in the right places. There's certain veins that tend to pop when we exert, and certain vessels that just really don't. But yeah, it can be very cool to suggest more. I think a lot of sculptors just don't want to go over the board on it. And you can always do it freehand. It's actually really easy to suggest that sort of thing. It's a good, as long as you can master making it look right, which, you know, is entirely just look at photos and make sure you're kind of keeping in mind how it should really look. There we go. Yeah, that's true. That's very Bruce Lee of me, isn't it? Fatigue woo. And you know, with some of the ways that Canadians pronounce some things, I might actually buy that. I'm going to block in a little bit more shadow here, just a tiny bit. I got in trouble with that shoulder before, but I'm trying to keep it good. All right, let's do some highlights. Let's just do some lining and some highlights. So first we'll mix up a highlight color, a new highlight color. Ooh. So let's see here. Let's turn off our happy little light so it doesn't blind me. And we're gonna grab, I want to keep some of my regular skin tone open. I used to always make the mistake of just adding like white and stuff to my existing skin color or medium color, and then I wouldn't have that color when I needed to touch up or wet blend. So I'm going to keep that active by just adding a drop of water to it to make sure it stays good, because it is getting a little low since I've transferred some of it to there to build our shadow. So just to keep that good, I'll add a brush full of water and I'll rebuild over here. And what I'll do is, I know you guys have seen me do this before probably, but since I started out with around a 4-2 ogre skin to tan skin, so about a 2-1, I'm going to invert that. I'm going to do 2-1 tan skin to ogre, and I'm going to add a drop of white. You could also use an off-white, like linen white or bleached linen if you want to. It really doesn't matter. The only difference is the amount of white pigment you're adding. When you add pure white, you're really hitting it hard with white pigment because pure white has a very, very heavy load of pigment. So let's do 4 drops of this and 2 drops of the ogre skin. Let's actually start with just 1 drop of the ogre skin and see how yellow it takes us. Ooh, got a bubble. There. 1 giant drop. It really is glooby. There. The ogres are very thick pigment. Yellow and brown oxides are very, very thick. So when you notice one of those giant gloopy drops coming out of a color like this, it's because it has a heavy load of yellow ochre or brown ochre in it. Oxide. And that is going to shift it. So I'm going to drop a drop of water in this. I'm going to mix it up and kind of look at the color and see. Because if you want to shift it toward a skin tone, we probably need to go pretty strongly toward that skin tone. Oh yeah, okay, this can work. So that is tan skin, 4 drops with just 1 drop of ogre skin. It's really taking it up, very golden. Let's draw, what do I want to do for this? Let's grab bleached linen today. I think I just want to take it up a little. That said, Bruce Lee is absolutely right, is focus on one thing at a time. Lately, I'm focusing a lot on light and shadow. And that's why you guys are seeing me paint a lot more things with stronger lighting and shadows. It's because it's something I'm actively working on. And doing it on stream, it's an opportunity for me to work on it. I may need just a little bit more yellow in here. We're going to see. It's a very different color. I'm going to use 1 more drop of bleached linen. I need to bring it up higher. It's a very different color from this because we did the skin tone as primary. And so I'm going to test this, but it may need a tiny bit more yellow in it to transition. And then we may go up with more skin color. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to see. Because you never know until you put it on top of the existing color. Especially because if I put enough water in it to make it, thinned enough for a highlight, it's going to be kind of see-through. So it's going to be moderated by what I put it over. But that may be just a little bit too off because it's very skin tone now. Maybe a little bit too off from this. I may need just a little bit more yellow. So let's try it and see. This is still going to be, I think, a little strong. So since I used so many drops of paint, I'm having to add a lot of water. Because you want it, usually for layering, you really do want it like 1-to-1. Unless you're layering with a dark transparent color. Dark or transparent color. Any light color though, anything with any white in it, you're going to have to load a lot more water in there. And when you load that much water in there, you're going to have to do a lot more brush unloading if you use a large brush. All right, let's take a look. I think this is about right. I decided I'm going to start it on the face. I may have thinned this a little bit too much. We'll see. Yeah, I think the problem is that it's not a lot pale. Like I can see it though. There it is. So it's not a lot paler than the skin tone we started with because I was a little timid with it. So I'm going to have to build it up. It's interesting. It's interesting because usually what we have with, when we take skin tones up, usually what we're doing is we're going warmer. We're going more toward yellow and white. But because this skin tone is already really yellow, when we go more toward a natural, like a more Caucasian skin tone, we're going away from yellow. So it's kind of weird and counterintuitive. I feel like I want to add a little more white to this. Let's see. We also need to decide if he's going to have eyebrows. But right now the brow ridge is just going to get highlighted. He's also kind of frowny, so we should add a little dollop of highlight. See? It's very interesting, but it's, I think I need it to go lighter, and I think I need it to go yellower. So, all right, we're going to do that. We're just going to add in, though. We're not going to add in more bleached linen, because then I'm almost filling up this well as it is. So I'm going to add a brush full of white from my previous white puddle, and I'm going to add a brush full of our base color from our previous puddle. I'm just going to shift it more yellow. But it's still pretty skin tone. We're going to try that. It probably only shifted it a little bit, but it should also have thickened up my mix a little, since those other colors were only thinned about 3-to-1 or 2-to-1. So there we go. When you're doing a bald head highlight, you pretty much have to do it like it's in a circle. So you have to like do little roads in from all around, and kind of like you're painting a starfish with a solid center here to build up that highlight. So the more room I cover with this more skin tone type highlight, the more skin tone and less yellow the ogre will appear to be. Because, you know, if you lose your midtone, and this is something I've talked about with people before, it's two of the people I'm coaching have run into this problem very recently. So it's extremely common when you start layering to lose your midtone. You start adding on highlights and you start covering up a lot of your midtone, and you don't realize how much you've covered up until the color of your piece completely shifts. And then you're like, whoa, how did I start wanting to do X and end up with Z? So remember that, and make sure that you leave space for your midtone. Whatever color you want the surface to look, 50% needs to stay that color. So if I want his face up here to look yellow, I need to knock back this huge spot. I've like almost covered the entire top of the skull because the light is falling up here. I've almost covered the entire top of the skull with this. So I'm going to need to like moderate this stuff here to make sure that I have enough yellow that my ogre still has that yellow look. But this is a very interesting skin color we're going to end up with. Like, this is the kind of skin color that you do, and it's so different and it's so interesting that everybody wants to know how you did it. Which is fun, but now I'm going to have to like write down how I mix this. I'm going to swatch it for sure at the end of the stream. I'm going to build this up. Now I can somewhat swing this back if I add more yellow and more white, if I wanted it to go back more toward yellow. But right now, I'm just going to pop a highlight here on the nose, but then I'm going to grab some red. We'll grab Kobold Scale since we're using our... I love Kobold Scale, and it's an excuse to use it. When you're building reds into your demi-human skin tones, you can add just any old red, but I do like Kobold Scale. So notice how that's changing the color up here. Compare it to that. Oh, I need to get the middle. Since he's got a shadow kind of between his brows here, but I want that muscle, that frowny muscle to really stand out. I'm going to add it in with some white. When you've got a little detail like this, even when it's like a piece of the skin that you want to stand out better, do that white underpaint. It's going to make it really stand out like you want it to. I really want that frowny face. There. So now we're really getting that frown on. Alrighty. I didn't line like I said I was going to either. And I need to do that. So, all right, let's actually do that. So, yeah, once you get into it, you're, remember that colors always change in accordance to what is next to them. So, by introducing this really dark liner, I'm going to get a better idea of how light or dark my skin tone actually is. Because then I'll have not only the white back here to compare it to, but this really, really dark liner. And having both on your model gives you a much better idea. Because before I put that in, his skin tone looks pretty dark. But when I start to bring in that dark shadow, see, then the skin tone shifts much lighter. And the shadows shift lighter. Like the shadows used to be the darkest thing on the model. Now they're not. So it changes. Like just that little line, just that little bit of lining changes the whole look here as far as the relative light or darkness of the skin. So it's a very good idea, if you have an opinion on how light or dark your skin should be, that you have like something light and something dark on the piece, blocked in at least, to give you that idea of how light or dark it is. If you know what might be dark, then you could paint it. Otherwise, you can just do some lining. And I'm using brown liner. It's thinned about 3:1. 3:1 or 4:1. I kept it fairly thick because I knew I wanted a nice dark line here. If you thin it more, you can get a much more natural shadow, much less a cartoony line. But since I'm already kind of going with some dramatic lighting angles on this guy, the line isn't a problem. There we go. And then we can get this little rope down here too. Lining should always be used to bring out small details. Lining or shading. And I mean, lining is just abbreviated shading. It's just very, very efficient shading. And as you get bigger, you use less lining in your painting often, because it will cease to look as natural. And it will start to look more cartoony. We actually had a foggy morning this morning here, which is rare in the South Bay. Of course, it's really frequent in San Francisco. But now it's all sunny, so I think my walk is going to be really nice. Looking forward to it. I have a phone call this afternoon with a novelist who self-publishes, to talk to her about the process and her career. It's actually a friend of Derek Schubert's. He connected us. They're great bludgeoning weapons. I know, Kerniko, if that's what you can say. I'm like, she's like, oh yeah, they're really cool looking. No, they're great bludgeoning weapons. This makes me wonder about you, Kerniko. If I ask you about your cast iron frying pan, are you going to say, oh, it's a great bludgeoning weapon? Or are you going to say, oh yeah, I like to make steaks in that? If it's this Scottish people, they just have this like underlying urge to bash things. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into that. Yeah, but at least it'll be more light when I get up in the morning, Dogfather. I've been making myself get up so early to get writing in before before I stream. Since I have a lot of energy in the morning, I'm really creative, so I didn't want to waste those hours. But man, like when I pull the drapes, I reach out of bed because I'm right by the window, and I pull our drapes apart to let some light in so my brain can start to wake up when my alarm goes off. There's just like this tiny bit of light. It's like barely not dark out. It's getting on me. I'm going to be actually happy for daylight savings time just because it makes it easier to get up early. And then you get an extra hour of sleep, but practical. Sometimes you use things for violence and sustenance. I knew I liked Scotland. It was our last family vacation as my parents took my brother and I to Scotland. And we went to Edinburgh and some other places. I got very sick on that vacation, sadly. I ate a bad egg. But happily it was later in the vacation, so. But I don't recommend getting food poisoning in a foreign country. It was good because Scotland was at least, a friendlier foreign country, but it still is not ideal. Oh yeah. I've been getting up at more like 6:45 or 7. Yeah, I found when that happened, Dogfather, something that helped me, if you can, get outside on your lunch hour and take a walk if it's nice out. That really helped me with the whole dark to dark thing. The other thing that's helping me lately is my happy light, which is just my bright light in the morning. Ooh, I probably forgot to turn it off. Dang it. It's just sitting in there being happy without me. So we lined around the tusks and around the necklace there, and it's making our details stand out a little better. I'm going to line in the eyes as well. It was food poisoning, Don Mall. It was just that I ate an egg that was not optimal, and it reacted. And I knew it was eggs because, oh my God, I could not touch eggs for a year after that, and I love eggs. Like, love eggs deeply in my soul, and I could not touch an egg for a year after I got sick. It was very bad. I was so sad. I was a super sad Anne. Well, maybe you missed just a little part of my stream. Or get yourself a happy light, and then you can have your happy light while you're watching the stream. Those daylight lamps that I have to say it is really helping. Gosh. Because, yeah, we need light. Like, there's a reason we get grumpy when we don't get enough light. Our human brains are wired for it. So that's probably why you hate it so much when you wake up super early and then you go to, leave work and it's dark again. You don't get any sunlight. I still feel like the happy light's not a replacement for real sunlight, but it definitely helps with my energy level for sure. And my general mood. All right, got those eyes kind of like they're tiny little eyeballs. Tiny. So it's going to be hard to do anything with those eyeballs because they're just so little. I don't think I'm going to get into adding the red tones today. I started the line and now it's like 10 minutes before the end. Just don't be like the submariners, okay? Like, submariners, like, apparently have a higher level of cancer because they're, like, totally without light. That's one of the possible reasons. So if you like dark, that's great. But get some light sometimes, okay? I want all my patrons to be happy and healthy. Hey, welcome, Raiders. Hey, Lazy Pandas. Thanks for the raid. We're just finishing up here, actually. We're just, I started doing some lining just to give me an idea how really light or dark my Ogre skin tone was and just to bring out some of these features. I'll probably just keep going with the lining here just to give me an idea. having some big darks, some really dark colors, as well as like this white primer on my model are helping me kind of assess how light or dark my skin tone is. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I'm on every day from 11:30 a.m. Central USA time to 1, doing Reaper minis. And we switch it up. We have like 6 that we do. And we go on a rotation, and when we finish one, we sub in a new one. But yeah, we're doing the traditional first edition Ogre skin tone here. So the yellowish color. Because our Reaper's art director is a sucker for first edition D&D. And people just voted that they wanted me to take his skin tone up with more of a natural skin color. So that's why the head looks a little different here as we're testing that out. Oh, nice. 3D modeling. Cool. That's fantastic. Yeah, Reaper switched over. Our in-house sculptors at Reaper use ZBrush. And many of our freelance sculptors as well. I admire you 3D modeling people, because those are not, like, some of those programs are kind of hard to get into. Like, the learning curve is steep. Oh, it's Luca Day, isn't it? It's Luca Day. That explains why he rated us. Because he had to take a break before he had to be on again. Sanity points. He had to regenerate sanity points. Yeah, that is tough. Well, think about the happy light. I mean, think about trying it. If you have a friend with one, you could try it for a couple days and see how it makes you feel. Because it doesn't work for some people, and it does work for others. The first day I tried it, I felt like I was almost a little bit too hopped up on caffeine. So I moved it a little farther away from me and made it a little dimmer than the brightest setting. And now I really like it. I feel really energized by it. Just a daylight lamp, really. All right. Just blocking in some of those dark shadows. Even the best painters in the world just block in anything underneath like this dark. They're just going to darken it down because it's not important. You don't want anybody to look at it. So just paint it dark brown or black or whatever you have out that you're using as your really dark lining color. And just rock that way because then it disappears. Yeah, I'm finding that it makes me less dependent on caffeine using the daylight thing. Oh, Sculptress, yep. Neat. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, ZBrush being Sculptrix is the lighter version of ZBrush, right? Oh, I see. I missed a bit of a flashing here on the underside of this link cloth, so I'm going to take it off. There. Perfect. You're solar powered? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get out for my walk every day, but I turn on that daylight lamp right when I sit down in the morning to eat breakfast, and I just leave it on until I get up to come over here and stream, and it really has made me, like, I have energy again. It's weird. Like, I used to just be a little tornado. Like, I had a ton of energy. I got so much done every day, and I started noticing that I was, like, having less of it. But now, since I started the daylight lamp, like, it's all my old energy is back. Which makes me happy, because I was thinking, like, I was getting older and losing it. But apparently not. Apparently I was just, like, indoors and in the dim light too much. Now I can go back to being rocket powered. Yeah, have fun, lazy pandas. Oh, 4 hours. Eek, yeah. Go get sanity and food, calories, and hydrate. Thanks for stopping in. It was nice to meet you. I'm Anne. I work for Reaper Miniatures. Oh, that's hard, Twistedoma. Like, that's just rough. Like, my happiest moment was when they built out the new paint department and my office had a window. Like, I actually rated a window at Reaper because that helped a lot. Because, yeah, the old art room was just like, just buried. It had no windows. It was in a back hall. And it was always, you know, I was in the dim all day unless I went out and walked on my lunch. It's hard. It's hard on you. Yeah, we're gonna, let's see here. Luca's waiting, so I should wrap it rather than getting all into my lining, which I just love. But can you see, guys, how, you know, that lining just like kind of crisps up your detail. It brings things more into perspective. It really shows us that our skin tone is actually pretty, it's mid-light. And it's going to give us a good reference point moving forward. Now, our highlights are also going to look a lot lighter once we cover up all this white primer, unless we put something really light colored on the model other than the skin highlights. So again, all your colors are going to change depending on other colors you use on the model. So you'll watch this evolve as we go through it, and hopefully that'll make sense to you. But yeah, this was a fun stream. I had fun. I hope you guys had fun. Thanks for sticking around, any of you who stuck around from our raids today from Miniatures Den. And of course, Luca will return in just a moment. I think tomorrow's miniature, we're actually going back to our Hellborn. So we'll be working on his... we were working on his face last time and bringing his skin up. I'll probably bring the orange tones into the skin tomorrow. So that is what we've got planned. Indeed. Yeah, catch the vodka, Nico. We talked about a lot of cool stuff. We talked about correcting lighting and tricks for doing that, and tricks for making yellow, like for touching up yellows. And then we were talking about relative colors and relative highlights and warmth and cold. And oh my God, we talked about so much today. So have a good one, everybody. And I will see you on again tomorrow morning. I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.